this in various aspects, but I want to change the coordinate system back to world space, so I'm looking directly down from the top. I'm going to use this option to scale them only in the X direction. So we have a value here. You can see that we're going 0.65 or so, and we can enter the value 0.60, which will get us to 60% of the original size. Now we're going to say OK, rotate this around and take a look at the geometry. Let's see what this looks like by going back to control frame display, which will show us the cage on the outside that we're looking at, as well as the smooth inside. As we take a look at this, everything scales pretty well, and it goes back out to the appropriate size stem that we're dealing with. And if you want to, we can go to smooth display as well. We can take a look. However, I do notice one thing that I don't like. The way that it scales out and it changes this area here where we have our head tube. Because we're scaling in this geometry, you can see that it actually rolls that lip out just slightly. Now, for the time being, that's going to be okay, because ultimately this is an external surface, and the round portion of our stem is actually going to be inset from this. So that's okay now, but this might be something that we might need to come back and address a little bit later. So for right now, we'll leave it okay. We'll go back to box mode and we'll say okay. And this is something that's apparent when we look at this in box mode. When we rotate this around, we can see the way the geometry rolls together, and that this section is a little bit larger. Now, if we wanted to, we could also grab this entire upper edge using Modify, going to our local coordinate system. Notice how it changes that specific orientation. If we go back to our world space, we can scale this in two directions. So as we look at this, we can grab this corner here and we can scale this down just slightly. But notice what it's doing to that geometry. If we say OK, and we take a look at this again in a smooth display, you can see that it left this upper lip here rolled out. We're going to say OK, and we're going to leave it on smooth for now. I'm going to double click this upper edge, go back to Modify, and I want to scale this down as well. So again, the geometry is going to be dependent on what you're doing. Right? If I do Control Z and undo and bring this back, we can see that we have this nice smooth display right here, right now. And if we want to, we can double click this edge and hit delete, and that'll remove it from our profile, so that way it's a little bit easier to control that shape, because we no longer need to freeze this. As I mentioned initially in our course, it's always a good idea to have the least amount of subdivisions to control your geometry as needed. The more subdivisions you add, the harder the geometry becomes to control. So we're going to keep it minimal up top for right now, and again, we will come back and potentially address that.